Good morning. For the longest time, I've wanted to make a blanket, and because I crochet a lot more than I knit, I started out making a knit blanket, and I made this a couple months ago, and I didn't even finish it. I ended up hating the colors, and it was just really time consuming to crochet a blanket, although they do come out really nice when you have the patience. But I decided to hand knit a blanket instead, especially since I'm getting more into knitting. I thought it'd be really fun to try knitting with my bare hands, because I don't have a crochet hook or a knitting needle that's compatible for this really chunky yarn that I used. I needed a 10 to 11 millimeter needle or hook, and that is really big. And the biggest one that I have is only 6 millimeters, so I needed double that. And I did not want to go out and buy one, so I decided why not try a new skill. And I'm going to quickly show you guys how to start your own knit blanket so you can make one whilst watching this video. So you're going to start off with some really chunky yarn that's compatible with an 11 or 12 millimeter crochet hook. And then you're also going to need a pair of scissors and your bare hands. So we're going to start off by making our foundation chain. So I'm just going to chain a few just so I can show you guys the process, but you can size up or size down when you're making your own blanket. So the chaining is really customizable. So all you need to do is make a slip knot and then pull your yarn through like so, until you have all the chains that you want. It's really easy to do, but kind of hard to explain, so you can just watch carefully and see how I do it. So you just want to get your yarn and pull it through the slip knots and the loops that you have already made. For my blanket, I chained a total of 60, and like I said before, you can do more or less. So to start your first round, you're going to grab your yarn and then just flick it over to the side that you're going to be crocheting towards. So if you're crocheting towards the right side, you want your yarn to be on the right side, and this just helps maneuver your yarn properly so everything is traveling in the right direction. After that, you just want to pick up a loop like this, and then go to your next loop and then grab your yarn and then pull it up to create another loop. And you want to do this all the way along your chain, no matter how many chains that you have. فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا وتركنا بعضهم يومئذ يموج في بعض ونفخ في الصور فجمعناهم جمعا وعرضنا جهنم يومئذ للكافرين عرضا الذين كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا لا يستطيعون سمعا. And once you've done that all the way to the end, you want to now start your new row. So we're going to pick up a loop on our last row and then roll our yarn to the other side. So this is going to be the left side because we're now going to be knitting in the left direction. And then you're going to grab your loop and you're going to pull up a loop, and then just keep doing this process until you reach the end. And this process is so repetitive. All you have to do is repeat that until you have as many rows as you want for your blanket. And I'm nearing the finished product, so I just have 2 more balls of yarn to go through, and I go through them pretty quickly, so I should be done with the blanket in the next hour and a half or so. في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا
وكانوا لا يستطيعون سمعا أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه.
And this is actually such a fun process. I was just watching so many shows while I was knitting this, but one of the downsides of making this is that I dropped a lot of loops and I just had to keep finding them and picking them up again. And speaking of that, let me just show you guys quickly how to pick up your loops. So you'll notice that there'll be a big gap and you're like, why is this hole here? So that's most likely you dropping a loop. So all you have to do is pick up the yarn from the previous round and then pick it up again to the yarn that you have already, and that's just fixing your mistake on the previous round, if that makes sense. And then you just do that every time you have dropped a stitch. And whilst I was doing this, I was watching MasterChef downstairs, and the reason why I keep dropping my loops was because I keep transporting it around the house, because when I'm making a big project, I don't like just making it in my room. I would take it to my brother's room, for example, and then start crocheting or knitting there, do it downstairs in the kitchen or just something other than my room or even the garden. So that's why I dropped a lot of stitches, and it was hard for me to find out where I started as well. So that's what took me a while, but once I got the hang of it, I managed to work it up in a couple hours, so it really didn't take that long. And I used a total of 10 balls of yarn, and I think this is a perfect amount because like if you want to wash the blanket, it's going to stretch a bit, especially when you wash it and then hang it on the radiator to dry, for example. It's going to stretch, and even when it's not stretched, this is like the perfect length for me, and I love how it turned out. And I spent about £15 for the yarn as well, so altogether, so it really wasn't that bad.
آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا.
So towards the end of my blankets, I had a little bit of yarn left over, so I began to cast off, and this is so similar to, I think it's the same actually as casting off when you're knitting. So what you do is you knit one like normal, and then you just drag the second loop through, and then just repeat that all the way along your blanket, and it should look just like the bottom of your blanket as well, how we started with the foundation chain and we're kind of ending with the chain as well.
خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا قل لو كان.
And I really love how this turned out. The yarn is so soft as well, and I want to make another one already. I'm thinking of decorating it as well. I'm thinking of adding hearts or bows. I think that would turn out really nice, but for now I'm just going to keep it plain. And while I was knitting this, I was thinking about how I would design my future apartment. I'm such an apartment person. I don't really like houses. I prefer the way apartments look, especially when they're high off the ground so you can see the whole city through your window. I love that. So I was thinking, how would I decorate my apartment? And I was thinking of these throw blankets on the sofa and then some granny square cushions. I would be the type to decorate the house myself, like blankets, cushions, everything. I'll just make it myself, because why not? Alright guys, that is the end of today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you in the next one.